All right, this week's Huddle group topic, be preparing for tests. We're going to do it this week and next week, obviously, because it says part 1 right there. So each week until this whole thing blows over, I'll go through the Huddle stuff, through the stuff we normally go through, and I'll attach activities for it, and that's how we'll do attendance for this, and that's how we will do your grade, obviously, for this class. So here we go, preparing for tests. So, what's essential questions, stuff that will hopefully answer what strategies work best in preparing for tests and what strategies don't work best for preparing for tests. So, how many presidents can you remember? I was going to do a little game here, test prep strategy game here to help us learn a couple of these. So, the goal here is to see how many U.S. presidents' last names you can learn in 5 minutes from handout 2.17.2, which I will attach to this. Okay, and you can listen to music while you are doing this as well. Okay, only rule is you cannot cover up any of the self-quiz. This time the goal is to see on step 2 how many U.S. presidents' last names you can learn in 5 minutes. Okay, which again will be on there. You can use the handout as a giant flashcard. The giant flashcard in a self-quiz. Then take a 5-minute break. Then complete the quiz that is attached. And we'll see if listening to music or not listening, any of that stuff might help you. Then you'll trade and grade each other's papers. Obviously you won't do that because we don't have anybody. And then tally how many odd-numbered items you got correct. Then tally how many even numbers you got correct. That's getting a little intense. So here's the answer guide, if you got them right. I think I probably could have named, how many presidents up to 45? How many did they show? 32? I bet I could have named 26. All right, experiment debrief. So after you've done that, and you see some strategies, okay, how many, in which way did you remember more presidents from the first handout? Okay, all the odd number ones on the quiz. How many remember more U.S. presidents from the second handout, so the even numbers? And which study method do you think was more effective and why? So again, using those handouts to go through some of those methods. So, self-testing is the #1 study method. In a review of over 700 scientific studies on test preparation strategies, researchers found that self-testing is one of the best ways to prepare for tests. Self-testing triggered a mental search of long-term memory and forms multiple memory pathways in the brain. That comes from Scientific American. So, what are different ways to test yourself before a test? So, some strategies. Flashcards. We do a ton of that here. I know in English, and I know in my AP class we do a lot of flashcards. Answering sample questions at the end of a textbook chapter or from a study guide prepared by the teacher. I know we do that in a lot of classes. I know specifically those couple of you, 3 of you, that are in this Huddle group are also in my AP class, and we do a lot of textbook chapter tests. And then covering your class notes and answering questions or explaining keywords written in the margins. So what doesn't work and why? The least effective study methods are just highlighting and underlining things. While doing that just while reading is ineffective, possibly because students focus on individual items rather than making connections across items. Instead, if you like to highlight, read a section first and go back and highlight sparingly, quiz yourself on highlighted items. I don't really highlight my books very much when I'm reading things to prepare for lectures because I tend to highlight everything. And I have a hard time deciding what's most important and what's least important. So that's part of the reason that highlighting isn't super effective. Rereading fares poorly in comparison with more active strategies. So instead of just rereading something a bunch of times, pair a second reading with quizzing yourself, asking why questions, and self-explaining. There's a strategy you can look up called levels of questioning that they use in a lot of AP history style classes. That helps a lot with studying and does better than just rereading things over and over again. So pace studying, the second method that we're talking about here. Okay. Why do you think spreading studying out over time rather than studying everything the night before would be more effective? Okay, so we're talking about cramming. So here on the right, students often cram their studying into one long session close to the exam time. This is one of the worst ways to study because there's not enough time for information to go into long-term memory. Cramming may actually cause you to lose information. So, a more effective way, a more effective three-step process would be to regularly review your notes and skills from your classes. Then give a systemic pre-test review over 3 to 5 sessions, and then a post-test review to evaluate what strategies you worked on and what skills you need to work on. One thing that we can all do better is to look at our results when we take a test. Even in my class where I let kids retake stuff most of the time. But to look at how you did and what you got wrong and try to figure out why you got it wrong and try to get into your own thinking process, what they call metacognition, is very important. So, self-testing with the PQRST, P-Q-R-S-T. So, P stands for preview. Look over the course syllabus, your written notes, and headings and subheadings of the assigned reading. Question. Develop a list of questions from those created from the headings and subheadings in the reading, discussed in class, provided at the end of chapters, given in the study guide if one is provided, and in the left-hand column of your class notes, especially if you're taking Cornell-style notes, I should say. Read. Read the assigned reading in your written notes and look for answers to your study questions. I know reading can be boring, especially at your age. I wasn't a great reader when I was in high school, but literally reading is the most important thing you can do for your life to be a smart person. And we should all want to be smart people. State. So what they're saying is to state in your own words, say aloud, and to write down the answers to your study questions. And the T is test. Answer your study questions without looking at your notes or reading, and then check to see if your answers were correct and complete. Tips for test taking. I know we got some nervous testers in this school, so make sure to read the directions carefully. Make sure to answer what you're being asked to answer and to do what you are being asked to do. In my AP class, that gets tricky because they try to make it a little trickier, but do what they're asking you to do. Pay attention to the instructions. So for multiple choice items, read each choice before making your answer. If you are not sure of the answer, read the choices again. If you are still not sure, move on. You can always come back. After answering the questions you are sure of, you go back to the ones you skipped. But easiest way for if you don't straight up just know the answer after you read the choices is to go to number 4 here, eliminate the choices that you know are wrong, and then choose from the remaining ones. If you can eliminate 2, then it gives you a 50-50 chance. What we're looking for, especially when we're talking about AP test and multiple choice, which a few of you know, is you're looking for the most right answer. Sometimes there's multiple right answers, and you got to pick one that's the most right, or in some cases the least wrong. So when asked to fill in the blank, substitute each of the choices in the blank one at a time and then read the resulting sentence. Which one sounds right? This is one we can use a lot in our vocab tests when you got those fill in the blank for the vocabs. Put in the words that you're questioning, and if it sounds ridiculous, the sentence after you read it, then you can probably scratch that word off and move on to another one. For essay questions, first jot down the main points you want to make and then use these as an outline. This is how I passed every test in college. In college for history, every test is a writing test. They give you 15 people you got to know or places or whatever, and then you got to write an essay. They would usually give us an idea, 3 options what the essay could be, and I'd write outlines and I'd memorize each outline. And then as soon as they handed me the test, I'd flip the test over, I'd open up the blue book, which is a testing thing. I'm not sure if they still do it that way in college, but I'd open up the blue book and I'd write down the outline. And then I had it right there so that I could fill in the essay. That's one that will be helpful for us that are doing AP Lit or Lang, or AP US or AP Geography, because there'll probably be essay questions on those tests. All right, wrap up. So what did we learn today? What strategies work best for tests? Note cards work. We know that at this school at a high level, because a lot of people use note cards. What strategies don't work well, right? Just highlighting everything or just rereading a bunch of times without quizzing yourself in any way. So reflection. Maybe there'll be some room on this handout that I'll attach here. Is what 5 tips have you learned that might improve your studying? Okay, try out these 5 tips before your next test and then report back. Some advice here from a physicist. Keep the flame of curiosity and wonderment alive, even when studying for boring exams. That is the well from which we scientists draw our nourishment and energy. That's quite a quote. All right. That's it for this week. I'll have more videos coming up as we continue. Stay safe, be smart, stay inside.